with this, it's so interesting to hear about Sam's total and utter devotion to Warren to then later declare himself as the one and true prophet. So, was he always extremely devout to the FLDS, to Rulon, to Warren? Do you feel like he truly, truly believed it?
That is such an interesting question and dynamic because Sam, growing up, he was kind of your typical teenager where he was rebellious, he was pushing the envelope. He had to get re-baptized because he had done what we call doing the deed, which means you have premarital relations. And he was also drinking a lot and partying a lot, sneaking out at night. And it was almost always that he would have a bottle of Jose Cuervo in his jockey box in his truck that he would. Anyway, so he was considered a wild child. Like he was embarrassing to the family, especially to my father. He was considered very embarrassing.
Why? Just because he was rebellious?
Yes, and it was in a way that was so exceptional, at least for our community. Like he didn't have any shame in his rebellion, basically. So it was very difficult for my father because that's also an example of your upbringing. Whether whatever community you're from, you kind of make this assumption that someone's behavior is an example of their upbringing. So there was a lot of that embarrassment for my father. I don't know about my mother, but so he was, yeah, he was not a, he wasn't necessarily the golden child. And there was also the additional expectations put on him as well because he's the eldest, he's the oldest child. And he was just consistently in trouble. He was incredibly ADHD. And my mom actually had a nickname for him when we were kids. She called him Evil Knievel. So the older generation might know this because Evil Knievel was a stunt man. And before TV was taken away, we would watch Evil Knievel and he would do these stunts for movies and he would ride on his bike. So here's interesting. So in the documentary, I saw that Sam was putzing around on this little, oh my gosh, on this motorbike. Okay, he used to do that on his bike, pretend like he was Evil Knievel on a motorbike, and he used to do these stunts off of heels. So when I saw that, I was like secondhand embarrassment, but I was also laughing because it was like, okay, I can't not laugh at this. This is so ridiculous. So it was just like a blast from the past because my mom used to call him Evil Knievel because they would do all these stunts. He was a fearless kid, and he would also one thing that he was really good at is bringing people together and delegating, like setting up these pretty lavish engagements in the community with the neighborhood children. So we would do these big, huge games. Like his favorite was King of Bunkers Hill, and we'd all come together and he would basically just torture us for a couple of hours and then we go off on our way. So he was yeah, just very, very, he was always in trouble for doing something. And he also had a really mean streak. Like he was extremely aggressive. He would play these ridiculous games. Like he loved to say, run and I'll see if I can hit you. And he would have something either in his pocket or he would bring something or he would like pick something up off the ground. And he would make the children in the neighborhood run and just like a deer in the wild, see if he could shoot you. But he would pick up an item and
What?
he would throw it at whomever was he could get, and he would until it would like see if who it could hit. Like I have two big scars on my head that from that game that he would play.
Really?
Like yeah, massive scars on my head from that. So even before his accident, which we can get to in a second, his accident really shaped and reframed, I think, who he became later on.
Oh, I don't think I know about an accident. Did they mention that in the documentary?
No, and that was the other thing that I kept asking the public before I even watched the documentary is I said, "Oh, that's peculiar. Did anybody talk about the accident and his traumatic brain injury?"
Well, that kind of explains a lot.
Right, exactly. It doesn't give any excuse whatsoever to what occurred, but it gives some
Yeah.
context, is all it does. And the other thing that was shocking to me is Moroni was very, very close to Sam. He would come around all the time when we were growing up. I remember Moroni coming over to the house. Moroni was there at the hospital when Sam was in his coma after his accident, his traumatic brain injury. Moroni knew exactly what Sam was capable and not capable of after that brain injury. So why did he position him and give his full and complete power and control to someone
Yeah.
who had a disability?
Interesting.
That was never mentioned in the documentary. And once again, I want to make it clear that it doesn't give an excuse at all. Regardless, you're still, well, you're capable enough of making decisions and placing people in harm and victimizing and re-victimizing and knowing the difference between right and wrong.
So what happened?
Shortly after Sam was married, he and his first wife, and then I don't know if Moroni was with them or not, but Moroni's brother, who was driving the vehicle at the time, my brother, his wife, they were all driving to the community in Bountiful, Canada. When they got to Montana, they slid on black ice. Sam was not wearing his seatbelt, was thrown through the window across the median, and was in a coma for a couple of weeks in Missoula, Montana.
Wow.
And I went to that hospital and to visit him after that accident. Moroni was there. Years ago, when the FBI was reaching out, asking me to assist them in figuring out what, I guess at the time they were looking for information, which I had nothing to give. So most of the time I was just ignoring the calls, and they were calling multiple family members. I didn't know what was happening until after the documentary. It made sense later. I was like, oh, they were reaching out to me to ask for assistance in being able to expedite this process to being able to incarcerate him. At that time, yeah, I didn't really know exactly what was going on, but then I had gone to visit him in the hospital, not really knowing like whether or not how he'd recover, whether he would even come out of his coma. He did a couple of weeks later. He came out of his coma. There was a very obvious and evident shift in his personality after that. That was right around the time when Warren Jeffs had made it extremely clear to the congregation that they were not allowed to interact with Gentiles or with apostates, specifically apostates, because they had given up their salvation. So the damnation and this almost transferable sin would be, it was present. So they weren't allowed to interact. Sam would still occasionally come by. He still felt like there was an opportunity to bring me back to righteousness in a way.